Brini, boss.
Wait. Ok.
Bene, prego. Magnifico.
Grazie mille. Just tell me when to go.
You confirm with the recording, please. Recording.
Do I get some kind of sign?
5, 4. Are they running titles? Can you confirm for Roger?
The Education Institute for Scotland is set to reject fresh proposals from employers to increase wages. We are here at UWS on air to get the views of lecturers who form part of the union and speak to an
Yep, wait, hold on, James. Rolling now.
Welcome to UWS News. Welcome to UWS News. I'm Lea Fabrini. Our lead story today is about the future of pay for Scottish educators. The Education Institute of Scotland is expected to reject the last proposal for a 3% pay rise for teachers. The EIS already rejected one proposal earlier this year and will announce their final decision on the 18th of September. Dane Macbeth talked to Chris Gilgallon, representative for UWS at EIS, and a lecturer to get better insight.
The Education Institute for Scotland is set to reject fresh proposals from employers to increase wages. We are here at UWS on air to get the views of lecturers who form part of the union and speak to an on-site EIS representative.
People probably look at a lecturer's salary and think we're well paid, and I don't deny that we have a good salary, but in comparative terms what we earn has really slipped in the last number of years to what it would have previously been. And prices are going up everywhere, and we, like everybody else, we have bills to pay, etc. And I think for staff here it's just that kind of recognition of the work we do as well.
As I think in terms of recent years where there have been below inflation wage rises, and that's a cumulative effect over whatever 5, 6, 7 years has had an impact on the real value of people's wages, not just in education but across the board.
The reason you lecture, the reason you teach is because you enjoy imparting that knowledge, but the flip side is we can't be held to ransom on that by saying, just because we have students depending on us, we can't go on strike.
Dane joined us in the studio. Hello, Jane. What do students need to know about these upcoming changes?
Well, the Education Institute for Scotland are currently leading a campaign to try and get a 10% pay rise for teachers across all pay grades in Scotland, and they've been negotiating with employers and with the Scottish Government to try and implement this. This is particularly relevant to students who are looking to go into a teaching profession, and it's relevant to all lecturers as well. Earlier in the year there was a proposal which was rejected because it was significantly less than the 10% that they're hoping for, and on September the 18th they are set to respond to a revised offer. However, it is likely that this new offer is also going to be rejected, with the EIS today releasing a statement saying that industrial action could be likely.
So why is the EIS campaigning for a 10% pay rise?
Well, today they also commented on a report into education which was carried out by the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development. This report suggested that Scottish educators work some of the longest hours out of all the countries involved, and that's despite a real terms pay cut over the past decade for Scottish teachers. Now, the EIS and other teaching unions, they point to figures like this, coupled with the impact of austerity on public sector pay, and they say that it's necessary and relevant for a 10% pay rise to be implemented in order to bring value back to education. The campaign is called Value Education, Value Teachers.
And what would the fallout be if this proposal would be rejected on the 18th of September?
Well, if the fresh proposal is rejected again, then there is a real possibility of strike action by teachers. That's something that's happened several times in recent years, and it was again alluded to today by the EIS. When I spoke with Chris Gilgallon, he hoped that strike action could be avoided because of the impact that it has on Scottish students in their time at university. However, the EIS is still planning to hold a national rally to build up support for their campaign, and that national rally is set for the end of this month, which suggests that they're not letting up on this demand.
Well, thank you very much, Dane.
Thanks for having me.
Moving on, the Sun newspaper remains controversial on how it portrays women, but has established itself as the UK's most read paper in print and online. Susie Patterson got reactions from UWS Air students and a former Page 3 model.
In June this year, the Sun newspaper released its statistics for circulation across the UK. We went round UWS campus to ask a few people what they feel about when they see the imagery of women portrayed in this paper.
Oh, it's pretty annoying and degrading when you see like Page 3 girls in the Sun, because it's just objectifying women still.
It's very objectifying, especially, you know, it's quite, there was one that it was a woman talking about her time on Strictly, but it was a very provocative picture and there's just sort of no need for it.
We then spoke to ex-Page 3 model Linda Dunlop.
I've always been a loyal customer to the Sun newspaper. My husband also buys it every day as well. I used to do it with Linda Lasardi and all the rest of the girls that was out at that particular time. I don't have any regrets doing it. I do regret leaving it, but I had no choice at the time because I became pregnant with my son and he was first, or I would still have probably been doing something down that line. There was always backlash to it, there was always people have different opinions and stuff, but you just go out there and you do what you need to do at the time. It was paying good money. Lots of things with body images and stuff nowadays. It causes mental health to some people when they look at themselves in the pictures, and then days ago that there wasn't such a thing as that.
Susie joined us in studio. Hello, Susie.
Hi.
Was that the response you were expecting?
No, not exactly. We were quite fortunate to be able to talk to a former Page 3 model who gave us the other side, the other point of view, the other side of the coin. But that was very interesting. But even, in fact, some of the people we spoke to, even the ones who liked Strictly Come Dancing, for example, they didn't like the way the Sun newspaper portrayed their TV stars in photographs and how they spoke about them, how they were quoted. Mm-hmm.
So if the Sun is the biggest selling newspaper in the UK right now, who is reading it?
They sell over 12 million copies, hard copies in print per month up and down the country. There's something, half of them are actually sold to men between the age groups of 15 and 34, and just under half are sold to women. So that's quite a surprising result when you think of the content and how offensive a lot of people do find it, particularly women.
So is there really any harm in it? For example, Rupert Murdoch once said that Page 3 was just some harmless fun.
Well, yes, even if you think of it just as a piece of titillation, as it were, a lot of people do find it makes them very uncomfortable to know that that is out there and being looked at so frequently. The message it sends out reaches such a huge number of people on a daily basis that it's been found that it seriously impacts on females' self-confidence in believing that they might have to look like a glamour model in order to be able to get a job or to work in advertising or in fact even just to get a boyfriend. So quite a bit of it is a problem with self-image.
So what do you mean?
Well, it's, for example, women's charities and support groups, for example, like Rape Crisis and Zero Tolerance, who are campaigning against violence against women, absolutely struggle with the concept of women being showed in demeaning poses and as very passive and very often scantily dressed. And the reports of a really big increase in gender-based sexual bullying that's happening in schools and coercive abuse, which is around sexting and the use of compromised photographs, which are sort of a trend amongst teens and young adolescents. It's believed that this sort of newspaper drip feeds sexism and affects in a very negative way for young people and teaching young people how to behave in intimate relationships.
Well, that's very interesting. Thank you very much, Susie.
Thank you.
In sports news, Scotland have recorded their first win since last October after their 2-0 victory over Albania. But how do fans feel? Gary Kirkpatrick reports.
The odds appear to be in Scotland's favour as they kick off their UEFA Nations. However, the question is... I'm here in our town centre, ahead of class.
What's that, dude?
Actually, would have preferred not
well,
to
not
find
a great
today,
deal
but
because Scotland have kind of fallen off the radar a wee bit with their past results, especially the losing 4 in the last 5.
3 questions, we're out.
Which is not my favourite personally. Didn't do that well the first time.
Well, I'm just reading about
this
this morning, all the different leagues and formulas and algebra.
Is it Hints or Heinz?
They don't beat Albania in
Heinz.
Heinz, okay.
No take part in the rest of
We're taking 4 years.
Well, I'm backing them, mind you. I'm there as backing them, no. No, the
what do you think he needs to
the video that wasn't showing the thumbnail for the Scotland Albania.
I think he's probably his idea of having a young team, which is what he's got just now, is a good idea. But unfortunately, the infrastructure's not behind them in Scottish football just now.
There we go.
There you go.
We'll do a countdown when we come out.
They're doing well with young lads that they can pick up. None of them will ever be.
What do you mean? We do just a quick countdown when we come out of the package.
And the bigger
Just
clubs,
do, okay, he's going to do
in my opinion, the bigger clubs,
Come out
the
of the
Rangers,
package,
whatnot,
do
they
some
don't do
reporting.
anything to help young football players come through. So what do you
9,
think Alex McLeish's first
8,
competitive game in
7,
Charlotte? He's had
6,
4 defeats out of 5 so far.
4,
How are you feeling about
He's not a good manager, no, isn't he a clue?
1.
Isn't he?
Joining us with more in-depth review of the game is our sports correspondent Gregor Heinz. So, Gregor, how important was the win for Scotland last night?
Oh, overall, it was hugely important for McLeish to get that win. It had been quite a struggle since he came in, and it was our first competitive game with him in charge. So for him, kind of getting the fans off his back and getting a win was the most important thing from last night.
So, Gary found some other issues while talking to the public?
Well, the biggest problem Gary really had was a lot of fans, at least in Ayr, probably you'd find the same in a lot of places, didn't actually watch the game. Mm-hmm. I mean, from the sounds, a lot of people didn't like the interest of Scotland v Albania and would rather do things on their Monday night.
So what are some of the potential issues that we're seeing less fans watching?
Well, the biggest problem seems to be that, obviously, with the way the team's been, a lot of fans aren't prepared to go and spend nights watching the team lose games constantly or not perform to the right standard. And then on the flip side of that, there's a lot of fans who aren't willing to go and pay the money to go watch Albania, Israel, or any of their teams we might have to face. Plus, you have to look at the new way the fixtures are done when you have it coming on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursday nights. A lot of people have work the next day, so it limits a lot of fans travelling to games. I mean, there was only 20,000 there last night for a competitive match, which is quite poor for the team.
Well, thank you very much, Gregor. This was UWS News at... Oh, it's not. Sorry. This was UWS News. Thank you for watching. I'm Lea Fabrini. Good evening. Sorry. Like the news at 4 at the end, they're just turning me off because he didn't say it at the beginning. Like what I was saying, it just didn't work.